My name is Thomas Hurley, and I need you to understand something before I tell you this story. I am not a dramatic person. I work the late shift at Burger King. I go home, I play video games, I pay my rent. That's my life. That's all it was supposed to be. But something has been happening to me. Something I can't explain. Something that started so small, so ordinary, that I almost missed it entirely. Almost. It began about a month ago, 2 in the morning. I'm alone at the drive-thru window. Just me, the hum of the fryer, and the empty parking lot stretching out into the dark. A car pulls up to the speaker. Male voice, flat, unremarkable. Large double Whopper with cheese meal, Coke. Standard order, nothing strange. I rang it in, made the food, walked to the window, and here's the first thing that should have told me something was wrong. When he pulled up to pay, he only rolled his window down just enough to pass his card through. That's it, a sliver, like he was afraid I might see him. His windows were tinted dark. I couldn't make out a face, just a hand. I ran the card. I handed back the receipt. And then he drove away, not to the pickup window. Away, out of the lot, gone. I stood there holding his bag of food, staring at the empty lane, waiting for him to circle back. He never did. I ate the Whopper. Told myself people do weird things at 2 in the morning. I forgot about it. A week later, it happened again. Same order, same tinted windows, same hand sliding a card through the gap. And this time, I noticed. Someone did the exact same thing last week. But I still didn't connect them. Still thought, coincidence, just another strange night in a job full of them. It wasn't until the third time that I realized it was the same person. Every 4 or 5 days, always between 1 and 3 a.m., always the exact same order, always driving off without his food. Weeks passed. I started looking forward to it. I'd catch myself thinking, wonder if my mysterious benefactor shows up tonight. I was eating free Whoppers and telling myself there was nothing to worry about. I was so wrong. The night everything changed started like all the others. 2 a.m., quiet lot, that familiar engine pulling up. I heard the speaker crackle. Same voice, same order. And then a pause. And then he said something that stopped every single thought in my head. He said, "I hope you've been enjoying those Whoppers. Mr. Hurley." My last name is Hurley. I don't wear a name tag with my last name on it. It's not on the menu board. It's not posted anywhere a customer can read. There is no reason at all. This man should know who I am. I stood at that window frozen. My mouth opened. Nothing came out. Then I grabbed the speaker. "Who is this? How do you know my name? Who are you? What do you want?" I asked it 4 times, 5 times. He never answered. And this time, he didn't even pay. He didn't pull forward. He just left. I heard his engine, then silence. I stood in that empty drive-thru lane for a long time, and I had the overwhelming feeling that I was being watched. I drove home that night with all my mirrors checked twice. When I got to my front door, there was a note. Handwritten, folded once. "I know what you did. You have 3 days. My hands were shaking, not because I'm guilty of something, but because I don't know what I'm supposed to have done. I'm 24 years old. I work a drive-thru. I have no enemies, no secrets, no history. I didn't sleep. I sat on my couch with every light in the apartment burning until the sun came up. The next night he came back. This time he didn't order food. He just said 2 words through the speaker. "Write this down." Then he gave me an address, somewhere on the edge of town I'd never been. And then he told me to bring $10,000. In 2 days, I almost laughed. I don't have $10,000. I'm a Burger King employee living paycheck to paycheck. So I did the only thing I could think to do. I ignored it. 3 nights later, I was on my couch watching TV when, crash. An explosion of sound, glass everywhere. I hit the floor before I even understood what happened. Convinced, completely convinced that someone was shooting at me. When the ringing in my ears stopped and I looked up, a rock sat in the middle of my living room floor, surrounded by shattered window glass. Whoever threw it was already gone. I called the police. I told them everything, the drive-thru man, the note, the address, the money, all of it. They said they'd increase patrols. Without footage, without a plate, a face, a name, there wasn't much they could do. That was 3 days ago. I haven't gone back to work since. But here's what I keep coming back to. The thing that won't let me sleep. He knew my last name. He knew where I live. He's been watching me for weeks, and I still don't know who he is. I still don't know what he thinks I did. And somewhere out there right now, tonight, he knows exactly where I am. And I can't leave, and I can't stay. And I'm running out of time, I want you to think about the last time your gut told you something was wrong. Not a thought, not a suspicion. That feeling, deep and animal and immediate. Now ask yourself, did you listen to it? My name doesn't matter. What matters is that 8 months ago, I graduated college with a communications degree, moved back into my parents' house, and started driving for Uber on weekend nights to keep the lights on. It wasn't the plan, but it was the reality. And on most nights, it was fine, quiet even. The city empties out past midnight. You get into a rhythm. Pick up, drop off, repeat. That rhythm almost got me killed. It was a few weeks ago, 1:30 in the morning. I was about to sign off for the night when one last ride request came through. Pick up downtown, drop off way out past the suburbs, farther than I usually go. But the pay was good, so I took it. The passenger was completely normal. We barely talked. 40 minutes of quiet highway, streetlights thinning out, suburbs giving way to that dark edge where towns just stop. I dropped her off, turned around, started the long drive home, just me and the road in the dark. 10 minutes in, my headlights caught something ahead. A car, stopped in the middle of the road, hazard lights blinking orange into the night. 2 figures standing in front of it, arms raised, waving. My first instinct was immediate and loud. Don't stop. I almost didn't, but they looked normal, a couple, middle-aged, harmless. So I slowed down, rolled my window down, just a few inches, and waited. The woman leaned toward my car. She spoke quickly, almost too quickly, like the words were already prepared, already rehearsed. She said there was a collapsed bridge ahead, said they'd nearly driven off it themselves in the dark, said they were stopping every car they could to warn them. Her husband stepped forward, pointed into the tree line to my left. He said there was a dirt road, a turnoff about half a mile ahead, that cut through the woods and connected back to the highway. Said it would take me around the bridge, said I couldn't miss it. I thanked them, I drove, but something wouldn't settle. I kept thinking about the way she'd spoken. Fast, practiced. The way they'd both been standing in front of the car, not beside it, not behind it. In front, like they'd positioned themselves to be seen. The way neither of them ever looked behind them once. I reached the dirt road. I looked at it, dark mouth in the tree line, no lights, no signs. I kept driving. I don't know why, I just did. A few minutes later, my headlights swept across the bridge, and I slowed to a stop, because the bridge was fine. No collapse, no damage, no barriers or warnings or emergency tape. It sat there over the water exactly as it always had. Solid, ordinary, completely intact. I sat in my car on that bridge for a long time, thinking about where that dirt road went, thinking about what would have happened if I'd turned. I drove home, didn't sleep well, told myself there was probably a rational explanation. Wrong bridge, bad information. The couple had been confused. I almost believed it, but a few days later, curiosity won. I drove back, daytime, clear sky. I wanted to see that dirt road in the light, wanted to see where it actually led. I found the turnoff easily enough. Daylight made it look even less threatening, just a narrow path disappearing between the trees. But there was something that hadn't been there before. A sign, nailed to a tree at the entrance. I stared at it for a moment. Then I pulled over and got out of my car. I don't know what I was looking for. Evidence maybe, something that would make the story make sense. The moment my feet hit the ground, a feeling hit me like cold water. That same animal instinct from the night on the road, loud and immediate and completely without logic. I turned back toward my car, and that's when I heard it. A scream, a woman's scream, coming from somewhere deep inside those woods. I was back in my car before the sound had finished echoing. I don't remember making the decision to move. I was just gone. Engine on, tires on gravel, road underneath me, trees shrinking in the rearview mirror. I drove until the woods were completely out of sight, and then I drove further. I haven't gone back. I've thought about calling someone, but what do I say? That a couple warned me about a bridge that wasn't broken? That there's a dirt road with a dead-end sign and something in the woods that screams? I've thought about that couple almost every night since. The way she spoke like the words were ready. The way he pointed into the dark without hesitation, like he already knew exactly where he wanted me to go. I think about the person, or whatever it was, that screamed in those trees. Was it a warning? Was it bait? I don't know what was waiting for me at the end of that dirt road. I only know one thing with absolute certainty. My gut told me not to stop, and the one time I almost listened to someone else instead, was the closest I have ever come to disappearing. There's a specific kind of silence that isn't quiet. You've felt it before. That particular stillness that presses against you, that makes the air feel occupied. The kind of silence that isn't empty, because something is in it with you. A few winters ago, I worked overnight security at a warehouse complex. 11 at night to 7 in the morning. 8 hours alone, every single night. Most people hear that and say they couldn't do it. Too isolated, too dark, too quiet. I used to tell them it wasn't that bad. I don't say that anymore. The setup was standard. A security booth with a wall of monitors showing feeds from every camera on the property. Loading docks, entry points, interior aisles. All of it running on a loop. All of it mine to watch. Most nights, nothing happened. Most nights. It was around 1:30 in the morning when the first alert came through. Loading dock camera, motion triggered. I pulled up the feed immediately. Nothing there. Empty dock, empty lot, still air. I flagged it as a false positive. Sensor glitch, maybe a moth crossing the lens, and went back to my rounds. 12 minutes later, another alert. Same camera. I checked again. Nothing. But here's the thing that started pulling at me. The thing I couldn't quite dismiss. The motion wasn't triggering at the center of the frame. It was always at the edge, the very periphery of what the lens could capture. Like whatever was moving. Already knew exactly where the camera pointed. The alerts kept coming. Every 10 to 15 minutes. Always that same camera. Always the same empty frame with movement at the edge I couldn't quite see. By 3 a.m., I decided I needed to go outside and look myself. I pulled on my jacket, took my flashlight, walked out to the loading dock. Cold night, clear. The kind of winter air that carries sound a long way. I swept my beam across the dock, the lot, the tree line. Nothing. And then I looked down, at the ground. Snow. Fresh from earlier that evening, undisturbed. I could see my own footprints tracking out from the door behind me. And nothing else. No prints at the dock. No prints along the fence line. No prints anywhere a person could have been standing to trigger that camera again and again and again for the last 90 minutes. I stood out there in the cold for a long moment, telling myself there was an explanation, telling myself to go back inside. I went back inside. 20 minutes later, I heard it, a sound from inside the warehouse. Metallic, deliberate, a slow scraping, like something heavy being dragged across a concrete floor. I went straight to the monitors. Every camera, every aisle, nothing. I told myself it was the building settling, old metal contracting in the cold, pipes, inventory shifting on a shelf somewhere. I believed it just enough to stay in my seat. An hour passed. Then it came back, louder this time. And then, a bang, sharp and definitive. Not a settling sound, not a pipe, something impacting something else. And then camera 6 went black. 3 seconds of static, then the feed returned. But the angle was wrong. Slightly, just slightly. But I knew that camera. I'd stared at that feed every night for months, and what I was looking at now was a few degrees off. The edge of a shelf visible now that hadn't been in frame before. Someone had moved that camera. Someone had physically reached up and moved it. I want to tell you that I called for backup. That I waited. That I made the smart choice. But I was alone, and something was in my warehouse, and I had a job to do. So I took my flashlight, and I went inside. The warehouse at 4 a.m. is a different world. The lights on that side of the building were on a motion sensor. They clicked on ahead of me as I walked, plunging back into darkness behind me, a moving corridor of light in an ocean of black. I swept my beam down each aisle as I passed, rows of shelving stretching back 30, 40 feet into the dark. Halfway down the main aisle, I heard footsteps, not close, 2, maybe 3 aisles over, parallel to me, moving at the same pace I was moving. I stopped. They stopped. I stood there in the middle of that aisle, flashlight beam cutting into the dark ahead of me, and I listened. Not a sound, not the building, not pipes, not inventory settling. Complete silence, like something holding its breath, waiting to see what I would do next. I announced myself loud and clear. "Security, identify yourself. You're on a monitored property." The words went out into the dark. Nothing came back. I finished my patrol, every aisle, every corner, every place a person could stand or crouch or hide. I found nothing, no one, and I need you to understand why that was the worst possible outcome. Because a false alarm ends. A glitch explains itself. A misidentified sound lets you go back to your booth and breathe again. But finding nothing, after, means one of two things. Either I imagined all of it, or whoever was in there with me was very good at not being found. I sat in my booth until 7 a.m. with every interior light I could access burning at full. I watched those monitors until my eyes ached. Camera 6 stayed on, stayed shifted. The loading dock sent no more alerts. The warehouse was silent, but I never once felt alone. Because the thing about footsteps that stop when yours do is that silence isn't absence. Sometimes silence is just something. Some things you see, you can't unsee. Not because they were violent, not because they were loud, but because they were wrong in a way your brain can't file away, can't categorize, can't explain into something safe. What I saw that night, I have never explained away. Not once, not in all the years since. A few years ago, I worked the overnight shift at a 24-hour gym. Quiet job. Mostly empty building after midnight. The occasional insomniac grinding out a late workout, a few regulars who kept strange hours. Routine, predictable, safe. Or so I thought. It was around 2 a.m. when I noticed him. Far corner of the gym floor. The treadmill tucked against the back wall. The one nobody ever used because the angle was awkward and the overhead light had been flickering for a week. A man running 9 miles per hour. That's a fast pace. Serious runner territory. Sub 7-minute mile. I glanced at him and went back to what I was doing. 10 minutes passed. I looked up again. Still running. Still 9 mph, not a variation, not a slowdown, like a machine set to one speed and left there. I looked closer, and that's when the first thing registered. His clothes were wrong, ragged, dirty, not gym clothes, just clothes, like whatever he'd been wearing when he walked in off the street. His hair was long and matted, hanging across his face. And his expression? Nothing. Completely blank. Not the focused inward look of someone deep in a hard workout. Not fatigue. Not determination, just nothing. Like the lights were off behind his eyes. I told myself he was just tired, zoned out. People get like that on long runs, dissociated, somewhere else entirely. I almost let it go. And then I looked at his feet. He wasn't wearing shoes. Running 9 miles per hour on a treadmill belt, barefoot. I came around the desk immediately. Whatever else was going on, barefoot on a moving belt was a liability issue, a safety issue. I needed to stop him. I crossed the gym floor, turned the corner around the last row of equipment, and then I stopped walking. The treadmill was covered in blood. Not a smear, not a spot. His feet, both of them, were coming apart with every stride. The belt shredding skin with each rotation, blood flinging off in a fine mist with every step, pooling at the base of the machine, spreading dark and wet across the rubber mat beneath it. And he was still running. Same pace, same blank face, same mechanical rhythm. Like he couldn't feel it. Like he didn't know. I yelled at him to stop. He didn't react. Not a flinch, not a turn of the head, nothing. I yelled again, louder, moving toward him now. And then he spoke. He didn't look at me, didn't slow down, just opened his mouth and said, "Are you there?" Not to me, not an answer. Just those 3 words, directed at nothing, in the flattest and coldest voice I have ever heard come out of a human being. Like he was listening for something I couldn't hear. Like there was someone else in the room. I backed away from him and went straight for the phone to call the police. And before I dialed, instinct, just reflex, I glanced up at the monitor showing the gym floor camera. He was staring straight into the lens. Not running, standing completely still on the still-moving belt. Mouth open, screaming. No sound reaching me across the building. Just that silent, wide-mouthed scream aimed directly at the camera, directly at me. And then he stepped off the belt and walked out of frame. I cycled through every camera on the property. Gym floor, free weights, locker room entrance, parking lot. Nothing, nothing, nothing. And then, employee hallway. He was standing 6 feet from the office door, facing it, still. I don't remember crossing the room. I don't remember my hand on the lock. I just remember the sound of the bolt sliding home and the feeling of the door handle in my grip and thinking, please let this hold. 5 seconds. The doorknob rattled, and then he screamed. Not words, not questions, not that eerie 3-word sentence from before, just a scream. Raw and sustained and wrong in a way I cannot describe to you except to say that it didn't sound like someone in pain. It sounded like something that had learned to imitate pain. 3 minutes. I know because I watched the clock. Because counting seconds was the only thing keeping me grounded in that office while something stood on the other side of a locked door and screamed without stopping, without breathing, without end. And then, nothing. Mid-scream, gone. The police searched the entire building. Every room, every corner, every space a person could fit. They found the treadmill. They found the blood. More than they expected, they told me later. More than seemed survivable. They found no one. He was simply gone. I quit the next morning. Didn't finish my shift. Didn't give notice. Just left. And I've thought about that night almost every day since. Not obsessively, not with fear exactly. More like the way you think about a door left unlocked. A step you almost missed. A thing that almost happened. Because here's what I come back to. He was 6 feet from that office. The lock was a standard interior bolt, the kind you can buy at any hardware store. The kind that wasn't built to keep anything out. It held. He left. Or something called him away. I don't know what he was running from on that treadmill. I don't know what he was asking when he said, "Are you there?" I don't know what he wanted on the other side of that door. I only know one thing. Every night since, when I hear the sound of a door handle, I check the lock. Twice.